Hey, Ollie, do my lips look crusty? Okay. Hello, I am Anna Wolf, and this is How to Get Wet When You're Dry, a podcast all about love and lust without the liquor. I never breathe when I say that. I don't find attractive just stood in a corner wanking over me. I'm getting ready to go interview Thea Rose. She is the host of viral podcast, Seggs Talk Radio.
It was just a bunch of really hot people, sober.
A podcast about sex and kink and exploration and curiosity.
The second I stopped drinking, all of a sudden I had an Amazon addiction.
She's also a business baddie, and I'm really excited to chat to her. I just think she's super cool. Today, I am absolutely delighted to be welcoming Thea Rose. Thea's constantly curious, serially honest, and treats shame as something to be dismantled through exploration. She's done everything from working on a pot farm, which, by the way, I just have so many questions about, to being a multi-exit CPG founder, an acronym I just Googled, and in case you're wondering, it stands for Consumer Packaged Goods. She's also the host of viral sex and kink podcast, Seggs Talk Radio. Thea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Wow, I'm honored.
So thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to get right in there. Are you ready to get just right in there?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay,
yes, ma'am. Let's get wet.
I love the ma'am, by the way. That's something that Americans do that just pleases me.
Oh, yes. I love when boys call me ma'am.
I haven't tried that one out, but I'm going to give it a whirl. Okay, could you walk me through what your drinking actually looked like?
My drinking. So I grew up around it a bit on one side of my family. And then, in high school, I really couldn't get away with a whole lot in high school. I drank when I could, but my first real big memory of drinking was, it was a night that I got rejected from the college that I actually ended up going to. There was an issue with a credit, and it was the first time I drank heavily, and it was drinking because of an emotional reaction to all of a sudden my entire life plan of the only college I applied to, I can't go. And so I drank 2 Four Locos, as one does, and got delivered back to my mom as a teenager. And I think I would have ended up having a problem either way, but the fact that I started my drinking career off with drinking because of a negative emotion, I think speaks a lot to how I continued to relate to alcohol. So whether it was celebratory or it was a negative thing, big emotions were always correlated to my drinking. So that was my first kind of drink. And then I went off to a huge party school, specifically lots of drinking, but also a lot of drugs and psychedelics. I went to a college in rural Northern California. It's actually where 80% of the cannabis is grown in the United States. And so hence starting a cannabis company. But yeah, my initial exploration with drinking and partying was pretty heavy, lots of shots, lots of partying. And I think now in sobriety, I realize that I have a lot of sensitivity to stimulation and sounds and social anxiety. And so I just never let myself experience any of the social anxiety or negative parts of going out to these huge parties because I was drunk before I even got there. So there was a lot of drinking to party.
I don't know about you, but when did you get diagnosed when it comes to the neurodiversity?
Not until age 30.
I was 27, and the overstimulation, I didn't even realize that was a thing until I got sober. And I also just couldn't be in situations that were loud without a little sip here and there. But
yes.
I mean, you said that you would show up at these things having already had a drink. Did you pregame before going on a date?
Oh, for sure. Yes. And the pregaming thing was so justified in our early 20s of I'm drinking before I go do this thing. But yeah, before I got sober, it was I'm drinking 2 glasses of wine to not feel the nerves of a first date. And, that's problematic in its own way. Like the fact that I couldn't show up on these dates sober and just get to know the person. And also the process of feeling those feelings.
I found myself doing that, but it became more of a progressive thing. So a glass of wine turned into a martini, turned into me vaping at the table in a restaurant and puking all over a dude. Did you find, by the expression on your face, I'm guessing you didn't find similar. But did you find that it was progressive for you? And like, how did it kind of trickle into, you know, sex and relationships?
You know, my sobriety journey is interesting. I was sober for 4 years, which was quite a while ago, and then I relapsed, and then I'm sober again now. But it's like, I have to put some effort into thinking back that far. I wouldn't say that I was like dating in a cute, sexy way when I was dating last. Like it was messy. It was in LA, but I wasn't like setting up dates at like sit down dinners. Like I was just it was just, you know, it was messy. And so, you know, for me, it was definitely progressive. And I would say the darker part of the end of my drinking was living in Los Angeles. And it really started to become a daily thing and a dependency thing. But I was really good at the secrecy component. Like I was really good at kind of having it all together on the outside, especially as a founder. And the drinking or the pre-gaming, all of that was very, you know, secretive. But yeah, I think what's funny too about drinking and sobriety is like, I thought that I looked good and sounded good, but like I was a hot mess, you know? And like interacting now in sobriety with people that are drunk is really a bizarre experience because I'm like, oh, I wasn't like chic Sex in the City. I was like, it was not cute and it was also not safe, you know? So yeah.
On the not safe side of things, a lot of that I only came to terms with, I'd say like a couple years into sobriety maybe, because I still blamed myself a bit for stuff that had happened because I was drunk.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if you had any experiences with that also. It's horrible, but I was wondering if you had any experiences with that also and what processing that was like once sober.
Yeah, I think when consent boundaries get blurred and those lines get blurred when you're drunk, that it's so easy in our society as women to just default to, well, I was really fucked up. I don't quite remember what happened. I probably said that I wanted it. Like there's a lot of, I think, blame and internalization when there's a bunch of booze involved. And now in sobriety, it's much more clear to me if somebody's being a little pushy. And I also have the tools to set boundaries and stand up for myself. But yeah, negative things definitely happened. I studied abroad in South America for 6 months in college, which really just did to get out of, you know, my normal comfort zone and party. And yeah, there was a experience that was consensual that turned non-consensual. And I feel very clear about that. But in that time frame in my life, in my early 20s, it was very much, I don't really know what happened last night, feeling confused. There's just a lot of confusion associated with it.
I always want to say I'm really sorry when I hear something like that, but I feel like the word sorry don't really cut it because it is something that I feel like we have kind of, societally speaking, accepted as a normal thing that happens.
Right.
Like, oh, it's just going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about that one, as I'm sure you do too. But you mentioned secrecy, and I don't know about you, but a lot of my drinking was secret. Telling people things that had happened to me was secret. Did you find that secrecy played into just your relationship with yourself and with alcohol?
Definitely. Yeah, I love that question. I think that secrecy is something that once it's a pattern, it just kind of becomes ingrained for folks. And for me, I think there was a deep part of myself that knew that I had problematic drinking, that knew that I was an alcoholic, that I had, you know, it was very deep in my family. I think there was some deep knowing, especially because I tried a lot of the sober curious stuff before I fully got sober. And what I'm getting at is part of me knew that once once it was out in the open, or I said something or told someone, or people saw how I really drank, that the gig would kind of be up. You know what I mean? And so, for example, I waited about, I think till I was 6 months sober the first time to tell my mom, who's also sober and in recovery, that I was sober, because I thought, well, if I relapse or if I decide I want to drink again, the gig was up once the secret was out. And so, especially at the end of my drinking, the first 4 years, it was... yeah, there was a lot of secrecy. I was in a relationship, and it was like if we had a night of drinking, I had figured out that I could, hack the system by taking a shot the next morning, but I didn't want him to know. The weird thing about addiction is like it wasn't a conscious thought. I'm going to go do this because I don't want him to see. It was like it's visceral. It's visceral.
You just made me think of times that I would think that I was being so suave and so secretive and sneaking into another room to take a sip of gin and coming back thinking that I got it down to a T, but then I would fucking stink of gin. Is there a particular moment where you look at it now and it's almost funny how deluded you were in thinking that you were hiding something from somebody?
I mean, oh God, it makes me think of my 21st birthday where a bunch of my friends and I went down to San Francisco and went to a nightclub, and it was like we wheeled Thea out of there kind of thing. And I think what's so dysfunctional about drinking in modern society is that there are these certain milestones or events where it's just acceptable or okay to be like pass out drunk, fall over sick, needing to go to the hospital. Like that's not normal, but like 21st birthday, it was just my 21st birthday, so it was fine. But it wasn't fine. And so the memory of me being like wheeled out basically of this nightclub on what was supposed to be a really fun celebratory night that I remember nothing of, that's a bummer. And it took me a really long time to break away from those kind of societal acceptance surrounding certain ages, birthdays, milestones, certain holidays. Oh, well, Thanksgiving's a big drinking holiday. We all drink because we're all home with our families. Oh, St. Patrick's Day, just these justifications that we have to get so fucked up is not normal.
Totally. But also I just find I could have found an excuse to drink on anything. If I had good news, if I had bad news, if I was mildly inconvenienced. It's just, I don't know. I was resourceful, Thea. I was resourceful.
Of course. Yes, of course we are.
So what do you think you were looking for in sex and relationships before you got sober? I was just looking for straight up validation.
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth. Validation. I mean, and this kind of ties into it actually. So I used to have humongous boobs. This is going somewhere, I promise. I had a reduction. But during this phase in college, I was only getting attention from men because of that. And so there was this deep desire to be seen as a person, to be seen as smart and creative, and to be seen just as a whole person. But in college, I was sexualized so intensely that is not what people wanted to get to know me for. That's not why they wanted to sleep with me or get, experience intimacy with me. That was really hard to be sexualized from a young age, from teenage years through 20s. So I think that when I would get drunk, I kind of got to this fuck it point of I'll take attention wherever I can get it, even if it's just for this one thing or people wanting, to be intimate with me. I wanted validation that I was sexy. I also had a lot of really beautiful skinny girlfriends in college, and that was not me. And so they were always the ones that got hit on going out. So I think it was kind of like I was outsourcing confidence through these men and through other people. I still find myself coming up against that. If I'm feeling low about myself, I can still in sobriety see reaching out to these external things to feel confident or feel good about myself.
Yeah, I get so frustrated with myself, and I'm trying to go easy on myself with it because I find that I do that, and I can go into my head and think, why are you still doing this? Is that some sort of dissonance that you've experienced also?
Yeah, patterns are strong. And what my therapist always tells me is she always paints me this visual picture of you are a farm truck driving through a field and there is not a path. Like, this path is slowly being worn for new behavior and new patterns, and you're not going to get it right the first time. And I've noticed this pattern with neurodivergent folks where we're such extremists, and sober neurodivergent people. We want to get it right the first time. We want to go all in. We want to be perfectionists about these things. But patterns take such a long time. A couple months ago, I decided that the dating apps were bad for me. They were an unhealthy pattern. I was not treating people well. And so I swore off of them, cold turkey, as an addict does. And I find myself on them again, you know? But it's like, my therapist is like, she sees me from far away and she's like, yeah, no shit, you're going to get back on the apps every once in a while. Like, I know how you are.
Yep.
And it's going to take time to weave these new pathways in that field. So I try to just give myself a little grace because I have this desire to want to do it all. So like meditating, I'm going to do it every day for the next 30 days. How about you just meditate a couple times a week? You know what I mean?
Being a woman is one of the things I like best about myself. I think you'll like it too.
It's better than being a boy.
I listened to an episode that you did a while ago, and you were speaking about transactional relationships and how you think that most relationships are transactional, but we just don't really like to admit it. Mm-hmm. I would love to know more about that, and also how that's changed for you in sobriety and not in sobriety.
Yeah, so I mean, I have, I would say, pretty, I don't know, alternative progressive views about dating and sex work and transactional relationships. I think that since the dawn of time, there has always been the powerful, wealthy man with the beautiful woman, or vice versa, gender role-wise. And I think there's just kind of these unspoken patterns in society of relationships where it's like, yeah, there's like a transactional nature to this. Like, they get this because they get this, and like nobody really speaks about it, but I'm just, from an anthropological perspective, I find that stuff really interesting. I love learning about sex work and the history of it. Half my guests are sex workers. I just think it's something that should kind of be taken out of the shadows a bit. I've participated in drinking and in sobriety in like sugar dating arrangements. And, you know, I found them really fun and lucrative and an overall positive experience. But, you know, when it comes to safety, I will say that when I was participating that with drinking and in my young 20s, it just opened the door for, negative experiences or being taken advantage of. And so, you know, I often caution young women against most forms of sex work if they're in their young 20s. I think that it takes a bit of practice and that pattern building to set boundaries and say, this is what I am willing to do, this is what I'm not willing to do, and that kind of thing.
How did you get to a point where you had the voice to do that?
So what's cool about my journey is that I actually found my boundaries and a lot of my confidence through BDSM and kink. So I started off on the very submissive side of things, exploring on apps like Field, and this was in sobriety, and had some negative experiences where I found that the, quote, doms that I was exploring with were using dominance as an outlet for kind of negativity or violence towards women, kind of this I want to have control over you versus this is a power exchange that's mutually beneficial for both of our pleasure. And so I kind of wrapped up my era as a sub, and took a little pause from the BDSM and kink scene, and then I kind of reemerged as a dom. And that is really what has changed my life, is because I think so much conditioning in our society teaches women to be meek and quiet and to not speak up in the board meeting or move out of the way on the street when they're walking next to a man. Like, there is this inherent kind of submissive nature in society for women. And so practicing exploring telling a man what to do in the bedroom was like literally how I found my voice and my confidence. And what's cool about my kink life is that it is translated into all of my other areas. Like, I had a really hard call yesterday where I had to really step it up and like lean into that dominant energy of this is what happened, this is what I feel went wrong, and this is what I want. And I feel like a lot of that has come from that side of my life. So what I will say, especially for women, is that it feels really fucking icky and uncomfortable at first. It feels really unnatural to say no and set boundaries.
I read that you only explored that after being in a relationship, and you explored it in sobriety. What was the moment where you went, oh, I think this is something I want to try, and actually went and did the thing?
So that, to kind of tie it all together, I was in LA, the drinking got really bad. I got into a relationship. He made a couple of comments about my problematic drinking, and he knew what it looked like because he had family members that had been through that. And the first time I got sober, I kind of got sober to prove him wrong and to do it out of spite. Like, I don't have a problem. I can just stop, which is so funny. But I think that's important because I take my sobriety very seriously. And I hear a lot about that of like, when I got sober for the wrong reason, it did not stick. And so I will just say that that is why I got sober the first time. He stopped drinking with me, and, you know, it was one of those relationships that felt a little more platonic. It was very comfortable. It was very safe. And I try to urge folks to be careful with that, because you do need an element of attraction and lust, and you do need to have to want to have sex with the person you're dating. But it was a very comfortable relationship, and I was in it for 3 years. I mean, at the end of our relationship, I was literally interviewing therapists that focused on being asexual. Like, I was so far from who I am now because I so badly wanted to cling on to this relationship where I felt safe. I really thought I was asexual. I didn't have desire. I didn't feel turned on. Our sex was kind of obligatory. And so left that relationship, moved to Austin, Texas, and I was doing this really intense personal development program, met a woman who was a pro-dominatrix, and when she told me that, like, I remember where we were in this car when she kind of hush-hush whispered that, and it was like, it wasn't that I wanted to be one, because I wasn't there on my journey yet. It was that that's fucking really cool. I'm very curious about that. Yeah. I mean, the first audiobook I ever downloaded when I was a teenager was like about a madame, like a historical madame that owned like a brothel. Like, I've always just been kind of like fascinated by these subcultures and undercurrents. So she invited me to an event that was a like non-sex play party. It was rope tying and intimacy and kind of these exercises. And it was at a really beautiful house. And it was just a bunch of like really hot people, sober, which also just made me feel really safe. And so I saw this like kinky fun experience where all these beautiful people were tying each other up. And I was like, this is not what I thought it was. Like, I thought it was like stinky Burning Man people, like orgy dome. Like, I don't know what I thought it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that exists. I'm not judging. I'm not yucking anyone's yum. But it was just like my vibe. And so from there, I kind of, you know, as a hyperfixation girly, I just went all in. I went to workshops and classes, and I got on Field, and I started hooking up with a bunch of people. And it was like a full like sexual liberation and transformation, going from thinking I was asexual to that.
I absolutely love that. Also, you reminded me of when I was in rehab. I thought I was going to be going straight out of rehab and going to Burning Man with my friends. Like, I had a ticket. I was so fucking deluded. Anyway, that just made me chuckle. But, okay, on the sex party thing, the one you went to, that sounds fabulous. I've always had the thought of, oh, I would love to go to one of these things.
Yeah.
But what has stopped me is the idea of some man that I don't find attractive just stood in a corner wanking over me. Like, I just don't think I could deal with that. Like, how do you deal with that? Like,
yeah. So I've only been to a handful, and what I will say is that in my experience, and this is both in New York and in Texas, I get really excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be this hot, naughty fantasy. Then I leave feeling a little underwhelmed. Underwhelmed in the sense that for me, it has not been historically, when I've gone to play parties, a comfortable environment for me to feel turned on. I feel a little on edge because of all the people there and all the people I do not know. And like, you know, one I went to was like a higher end one, and everyone was wearing masks, and it just was like, I did not feel comfortable to let loose. So the parties that I've been to where I've actually engaged and been sexual with folks, it's when it was put on by a friend and it was a much smaller group. So like, you know, 15, 20 people. And it was more through like a tantra lens. So we were all like kind of grounding together before, and we were doing exercises prior to the play party vibe where it was like, this is how you say no. Like, the curator very thoughtfully talked about consent and made sure everyone passed these kind of like consent workshops. So those were the ones where I felt a little more free to explore. But the larger ones, the more like corporate ones, and the ones in New York, I haven't engaged with anyone. I will also say, as a sensory gal, it's a lot to take in. Like, just going and watching it is plenty. It's fucking plenty to just watch.
As a neurodivergent woman, sober, finally feeling it, what is it like to go into sex and relationships fully stimulated to the motherfucking nines? Like, how did that play up for you?
I remember being literally terrified about it. And I was terrified because even though I thought I'd done it, even though I thought I'd done sober dating or sober sex, I really fucking hadn't. And that's the delusion of alcoholism and addiction, is like, I thought that, because I'd only had a few glasses of wine, that was like a sober encounter. That's why it was so scary when I first started being intimate with people after getting sober. I was like, this is a new pattern. This is a completely new pathway that I've not explored. And I don't really have any great advice except like to get the reps in and like probably take it slower with people. You know what I mean? Like, I never want to shame people if they sleep together on the first date. Like, I'm never going to say anything like that. But I think in early sobriety, it's also important to take advice of folks around you. I never, didn't sleep with anyone on the first year of sobriety. I'm not going to lie. But if you can skip a beat to explore just your sobriety and then start dabbling in intimacy and dating and try to take it slow, I think with sex, I think that there's value there.
There's value there, but it's less fun.
I know. I'm not saying I did any of this. I'm not saying I waited or...
Neither did I.
Yeah.
What do you think it is, though, about the kind of addicty personality that just loves to do the bad thing?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny you say that, because I thought that was just me because I have trauma from being a kid and getting in trouble and wanting to be good. So it's like I've identified it as like this inner rebel. But I think it's totally an addicty thing too. I think our dopamine's fucked up. I think our impulse control is fucked up. And yeah, I mean, I like to get little bits of excitement and get high wherever I can. And that's the thing, is it's like the second I stopped drinking, all of a sudden I had an Amazon addiction. Like literally, like every day I was getting something from Amazon. And then it went to food and sugar. Sometimes I'm just like exhausted by myself, like by this like lack of balance and gray area. Like it can feel pretty exhausting. And I think I'm currently experiencing that with dating. I'm not really moderating that. Not that I need to moderate. Like there's no right or wrong. It's just about how you feel at the end of the day. And like I don't feel like how I'm currently dating is healthy, or that it's bringing me closer to a long-term relationship. Because what's fun? It's fun to get attention from 5 different guys. It's fun to be on all the apps getting the pings because it's gamified, and my little ADHD brain loves that. So it's kind of, it's hard to override how our brains work in that way.
How do you, because balance doesn't really tend to be something that exists within my dictionary, even though I like to pretend that it is. How, Thea, do you achieve the balancing question?
Oh my God. Well, you're just asking another woman in recovery. I think it is finding ways to work with your brain rather than shame it. So, for example, I know that I love little dopamine hits. Well, you know what I got really good at? Going viral on social media. I can go viral in any account, any niche, because I'm channeling something into healthy dopamine. And I'm not saying that like scrolling on TikTok for hours a day is healthy. I'm just saying it's better than taking 15 vodka shots. You know what I mean? Like it's finding creative ways to channel the fact that we do have highs and lows as people. And my affliction of addiction and of ADHD is like, I also channel that now into being a founder and building companies because I like a challenge. I like complicated situations and problem solving versus sitting at a desk for a 9 to 5. And so being a founder and entrepreneurship is a healthier way than, again, a bunch of booze to channel the fact that I like extreme scenarios. I find that a lot of founders have similar kind of a list of things going on for them as myself.
Something else that I felt whether I was drinking or I wasn't drinking is the pressure to look a certain way. You spoke about your experience with starting to take Ozempic. Where were you when you just thought, okay, this is something I think I want to do?
So this was a few years ago, and aligned with secrecy. It was kind of prior to Ozempic being so easy to get. So I heard about it and found it prior to the hype. And because of that, I had to find a weird doctor and like go through all these steps. And basically, if you're doing shit that you're not telling your best friends, it's probably not the best for you. So I was not going around telling people that I was starting this thing. I kind of wanted to see how it went on my own and report back. And that in and of itself sounds a little addicty. I decided to go on it because I felt really stuck. I've always wanted to lose 15, 20 pounds. I like how I look at a certain weight, and I just felt like what I was doing was not working. You know, so much of why Ozempic is one of the biggest industries right now. I'm building a health tech company, and a lot of times when I talk to somebody about partnering up, like they're going to be my doctors on the back end of my company, they go, yeah, most of our clients are GLP-1s. Like most of the money flowing through health tech space right now is people making money off GLP-1s. And I think why it's dangerous is because it is an instant gratification. And that is where I saw that opportunity to say, I don't have to actively do anything. It's an easy way to lose this weight. It was good at first because it really did quiet the food noise. I wasn't thinking about food nearly as much. I wasn't obsessing about it. Now, the problem with it is you slowly increase your dose, which therefore decreases your appetite. And something crazy that happened to me, which sadly I think it's happening to a lot more folks than is being reported to the FDA, is that as my dose went up, my mental health got worse to the point where at the end of my 6 months on Ozempic, I was having suicidal ideation, which is never something I've encountered before. I am an anxious girly, but I'm not a depressed girly. And it was that was the only cause and effect that I could see. And I like literally didn't want to live. And I think what's also so tumultuous about the Ozempic craze is that going off of it is one of the hardest decisions you will make because you do not change your patterns. And this is just, well, I will speak for myself. I did not change my patterns in terms of like, I didn't suddenly start eating healthier food. I rarely was hungry. And so when I did eat, I was eating cheeseburger and fries. So the second I got off of Ozempic, I went back to normal and I gained the weight back in 3 weeks. Like, it is not a long-term solution, and it is also very expensive. And even though I was having suicidal ideation, it was still a hard decision to go off of it because I knew I was going to gain the weight. But that's what a stronghold weight loss and body dysmorphia has on people in our society and on women. I definitely like to issue a disclaimer when I talk about it because there's a lot of big lawsuits happening right now with it, and you know, things just aren't being reported in the way they should be.
If it was around when I was really in the throes of things, I would have absolutely done it.
Yeah.
And I would feel like I'd be in a dangerous situation with it.
Yes.
And what was it like for you, though, having to make that decision in the same way, at least I did, when I realized, oh, the booze that was the solution is now the problem? What was it like having to make that decision with the weight loss injectables?
Yeah. It was really hard. And just like drinking, I wanted to blame it on anything else. Like literally down to the day I started this thing, my mental health went south and it continued to go south. But yet I wanted to blame it on the guy that was ruining my life. Or I wanted to blame it on the money problems. I wanted to find a reason. And at the end of the day, I could not find a reason for the intensity of the ideation other than this. But I really wanted to find another solution because that's how badly I wanted to grip on to this thing that was making me lose a lot of weight. But, you know, once I stopped doing it, I pretty quickly, and I think that's one of my superpowers, is I can pretty quickly turn something into like trying to share the good message. You know, basically I got on TikTok a few weeks after I stopped and I just said, hey, this crazy fucking thing just happened to me. And it put me in such a dark place and it went viral. Loads of comments from women being like, these are the weird side effects I've been having. These are the issues with my organs I've been having. And I realized that there was nowhere where all of these issues are being circulated. So, you know, I think that is how I can kind of channel some of these harder experiences I've had in life, is to like trying to create, you know, community around them. But yeah, it was a really hard decision to make. And I think that I totally get the inclination to try it. But I think the main thing I want to emphasize, if somebody's listening that wants to go on it, is that if you're on it, you're on it. When you go off, you will gain the weight back. And I think that's the scary part.
I don't know. I want to give you a cuddle. It makes me so fucking angry that we live in a world where we feel like we have to do this stuff.
I know. And one other thing I'll say about this craze is that's really hard is like, I love being a curvy woman. I think curvy women are gorgeous. And my whole feed used to be body positive influencers. And I felt like I was just really getting to a place where I felt really sexy. And then this happened. And now they're not necessarily out about it, but these girls are getting thinner. These body positive curvy girls are getting thinner, and it's hard to see on my feed because, you know, we're probably a similar age, but like my childhood was the Victoria's Secret supermodels, very skinny girls in the 90s. It's really hard to see because I think hugely in part to GLP-1s, the body ideal now becoming quite thin again. It's challenging to watch, even though I still feel like I like my curves and feel empowered. It's still just like, it's hard.
Oh, I get you. I really love my body now. I feel so comfortable in my curves and I love it. But I don't like that I just called it. I love my body.
Yes.
But, but I do see the extreme weight loss with the Ozempic, and there's always that part of my brain that just goes, well, damn, what about 5 kilograms?
Right.
But there's no finish line.
No.
It's just, you know, I'm not shaming people who are on it, by the way,
Same.
because it is to no fault of anybody. It is like the fucking world. But anyway, okay, well, Thea, how do you get wet when you're dry?
I get wet when I'm dry by being in touch with my nose and boundaries. So might not sound super sexy, but I'll try to make it sexy, which is that I have great sex and great intimacy and kinky encounters when I am really tapped into my yeses and nos. So I'm making out with somebody, but I don't want it to go further. And I'm not having obligatory sex. I'm saying, hey, I'm really enjoying our time together. I'm kind of tired. Let's pick this up, you know, next week or next time we hang out. My sex life, my libido, the fun that I have, the naughty adventures I have are empowering versus disempowering when I was drinking because I'm more in touch with what I want and I'm expressing it.
I love that. I so hear you in just saying what you want. I'm gonna end on this. I went on a date a couple of weeks ago and it was, 1 a.m. It was the middle of the week. Neither of us were drinking. We were at a bar and I just looked him dead in the eyes and I said, I want to go back to my apartment, make out and dry hump. Can we go do that? And he said yes, and it was great. And that's all I wanted that evening.
Yes.
I did fuck him. Anyway, all right, well, Thea.
That same night?
It was the same night. It turns out I didn't know what it was.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been the biggest treat speaking to you. And for, anybody listening, watching, whatever your flavor is, you can subscribe to the podcast all over social media at Wet Wind Dry Pod. And you can get it wherever you get your podcast biddies. So biddies is so weird. All right. Do you mind if I go have a quick piss?